All right, I think we can get started. The numbers are slowing down. I'm sure they'll slowly go up. But um, firstly, I want to give a yashikayach to Moshe Schindler and co. Uh, Usher, Moshe. We greatly appreciate your overall and overarching. I would call it literally a partnership with EDN. This goes back many conferences. I don't know how many it is already that we that you were like coming in literally helping out wherever you could, and really believing in helping Maestas and trying to help Maestas whatever way possible. So in that sense, we are our missions have been very aligned with regard to Maestas. Obviously, what we do every day is a little different, but really, it's something that we're very grateful for. And most recently, I personally had Taivas Hana with the videos that Mint Media produced for our Maisid, leveraging AI and I don't even know what magic, but somehow what I mean, we always know they can fix things on videos, but this was a new level. And anybody that saw those videos all said, how'd they do that? What's behind this? So I'm going to give the floor over to the Mint Media team, and I will disappear into the background. But yeah, Shukayach, Maishi, whatever you can cheer over here that will help everybody. We're very grateful, and I'm sure you got a lot to say. So all yours.
All right. So thank you, Rabbi Stern, and really a big thank you to you and your partners, to your brother, to Rabbi Kraus. Yes, we have been a partner, and mainly because we believe very much in the mission. We believe in what the EDN is doing, and we believe in what the executive directors are doing. And I really just want to start by thanking, the EDN for giving us this opportunity to share this information with all the executive directors, and a bigger thank you to the executive directors who are out there really at the forefront of Klal Yisrael, doing for the Moista Satira, for the Chesed organizations. I'm joined today. My name is Maishi Schindler. I'm the founder and director of productions here at Mint Media. I'm joined by Maishi Niehaus, who's our senior production manager, and Usher Weldler, who's our post-production coordinator. And really, the goal for today would be to try to lay out and inform the Olam here, become an educated consumer, so to say. Know what's possible with AI. We know we see a lot of AI videos out there. Some impress us, some don't. Some we're not even sure what is or what isn't AI. But I really would hope that at the end of this 45-minute session, each and every one of you could walk out understanding what is possible with AI. What could you ask of your video producer to be done for you? I think that there's ways that you could work it into some of your fundraising, help make money off it, help save money off it, and we're going to get to a lot of that as the session goes on. Before I start, I really wanted to take a moment and address the executive directors. I don't think I've had the floor like this and had the opportunity to have so many executive directors. I'm reminded of a story. The story takes place actually in 1924 in America. Moshe Mordechai, Moshe Mordechai Epstein, the Rosh Yeshiva of Slobodka, came to America to fundraise for the Slobodka Yeshiva. At the time, it was in Lithuania. And just as he got to America and started fundraising, he got an urgent telegram from the Alter of Slobodka, who is the Rosh Yeshiva founder, really, of the yeshiva. And he said that at that point, the Lithuanian government was looking to recruit 150 Talmidim into the army, and it was really a sakana for the yeshiva, and they had to move the yeshiva, relocate the yeshiva from Lithuania to Hebron. However, in order to do that, it would cost, and again, this is in 1924, it would cost $25,000 to relocate the yeshiva. Rav Moshe Mordechai Epstein, he was in America at the time. He decided to go to a close friend of the yeshiva, someone by the name of Mr. Harry Schiff. And he went to discuss it with Mr. Schiff because Mr. Schiff was an entrepreneur, a businessman, a well-known Gevir who always supported the yeshiva. And when he told him what was going on, Mr. Schiff said, you know what, I'm going to cover the full $25,000. And he covered the expense, and this is in 1924, $25,000 to help move the yeshiva from then Lithuania to Hebron. Years passed, and as the early 1930s set in, with the Great Depression, Mr. Harry Schiff came on very hard times. He lost all his money, all his investments, all his businesses. At the same time, Rav Moshe Mordechai Epstein was not well, and he started sending his son-in-law, Rav Chatzkel Sarna, to come fundraise in America for the yeshiva. Rav Chatzkel was unaware of Mr. Schiff's situation and invited him to a parlor meeting for the yeshiva. At the parlor meeting, Mr. Schiff asked to speak, and he got up and he said, I've made many investments, I had many businesses, I did so much over, my time in business. However, I lost every single one of those investments. The one thing I still have is the money I gave to Slobodka Yeshiva. That is nitzlius. That is something that will live on forever. And now that I have just a minute to speak to the executive directors of Klal Yisrael, I think what you guys do each and every day, whether it's for the Moshe HaTorah, Moshe HaChesed, throughout Klal Yisrael, is really nitzlius. Its impact and on Klal Yisrael will really be felt forever. And I think the story is so impactful and so important. I was wondering if you would all engage me for just 2 minutes to hear the story one more time.
The year was 1924. Rav Moshe Mordechai Epstein, the Rosh Yeshiva of Slobodka, was in America collecting much-needed funds for the yeshiva. He got an urgent telegram from the Alter of Slobodka that the Lithuanian army was looking to recruit 150 of their Talmidim to join their forces. It was an emergency. They had to move the yeshiva from Lithuania to Hebron. But that move would cost a tremendous amount of money, $25,000. Rav Moshe Mordechai reached out to a close friend of the yeshiva's, Mr. Harry Schiff, an entrepreneur well known in the real estate industry, who has helped the yeshiva for many years. Mr. Schiff heard the issue and decided to donate the full $25,000 to have the yeshiva relocated.
The pleasure is mine.
Years passed, and in the early 1930s, as the Great Depression set in, Mr. Harry Schiff, unfortunately, lost all his money. He was depleted down to living in the cellar of one of the buildings he previously owned. At around the same time, Rav Moshe Mordechai Epstein, who wasn't well anymore, sent his son-in-law, Reb Chatzkel Sarna, to continue the fundraising efforts in America. Unaware of Mr. Schiff's circumstances, Reb Chatzkel approached Mr. Schiff and invited him to one of the yeshiva's parlor meetings. At the parlor meeting, Mr. Harry Schiff stood up and said,
"Throughout my life, I have made many investments, and each and every one of them failed.
The one investment, the one success I still have is the Slobodka Yeshiva." Each and every one of you, as executive directors of Moshe HaTorah and Chesed throughout Klal Yisrael, are making investments of nitzlius. What you do every day will forever remain within Klal Yisrael, will forever have an impact for generations to come.
So yes, this was just made in honor of this webinar and in honor of the executive directors. And as I actually got some messages as it was playing, we specifically used my voice to show you that it's not the voice. I could have used Rabbi Yechiel Spiro, I could have used Rabbi Yehuda Deitch, or so many of the other talented voices of Klal Yisrael. But it's not the voice in this case that made it, but it was the visuals with the little AI magic. We were able to bring a story that much further, that much more impactful. And we really hope to share a lot of these type of ideas over today. Not that you're going to necessarily do it in your office, but you can now know what to ask from your video producer. I'm going to hand over the floor for a moment to Moshe Niehaus to open up and give us some tips and ideas.
Okay, amazing. Thank you all for coming. So as a video producer, the thing that I really enjoy about executive directors is the fact that executive directors are visionaries. And your role, and that's tzlacha of so many of you, is that you imagine futures that don't yet exist. Now, when it comes to video, at least historically, video worked against that mindset. Not because there wasn't enough talent, but due to built-in limitations. For example, locations, budgets, logistics, and what could realistically be filmed. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that these limits trained us to self-edit early, So what did we learn from that? We learned to think smaller than our vision. Now, when it comes to AI breaks that pattern. And that really brings us to part one of this webinar. That the new creative mindset is stop checking yourself. And here's the key shift. The key shift is no self-guardrails at the idea stage. Do not ask. Don't ask, is this realistic? Can this be filmed? Is this too complicated? Is this too ambitious? Those are great questions. But those questions have to do with execution, and you should ask those questions later. Now, here's the key question that you have to ask yourself when it comes to the vision. At the vision stage, here is the question. So what is the strongest, clearest, most emotionally powerful way to express this idea? Now write this down, or have your AI note taker write this down. What is the strongest, clearest, most emotionally powerful way to express this idea? And this is the major power when it comes to AI. AI lets vision come before logistics. Now, I just want to give one example. So we're going to roll to the tape on, I guess, one of our more famous promos. It was put out for reimagining a few months ago. So if we could just roll to the tape. I think. Okay, amazing. Okay, so we're back live. So I just want to give you a bit of the backstory of this promo and why when we had AI, that really changed the story for us. Let's tell us the goal. The goal of this video was to communicate one idea. What was that idea? The idea is that the whole entire world, they chase views, and we are a nation of non-viewers. So we had a script, and what would we have done if we didn't have AI? So I'll tell you the old approach. We would have used abstract footage, screens, numbers, computers, like generic digital visuals. Now, what would have been a result? Technically, it would have been fine. Like, the visuals would match the script. However, it would be emotionally empty, no human element, not a story. Because we have AI, so AI enabled us to follow one individual, enter his world, and show how this idea impacts a real person. Now, what was the outcome? We went from abstract to a real narrative, concept to a story, and Baruch Hashem, they told us this was the most effective promo they ever ran. They had more signups, any campaign since launch. But again, we had the same message, we have the same strategy. However, with AI, it was a completely different impact. Now, here's the big question, and I'm going to turn to my Shishila for the answer. But the question is, everything there technically you could have filmed. So why did we turn to AI if technically we could have filmed? What advantage did AI give us in this situation?
So excellent. Yeah. I mean, technically, we like to use AI where we can't film, meaning sometimes people approach us and say, hey, why can't you just use AI? But in some ways, it's very often easier for us to actually just film instead of scene. And we actually did, if you see in this Vayimine video, there was a train station, there was an airport, there were many different settings. And I don't know if people are familiar, but not long ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, we did a video for Aguda, which we could play now for a second, where we actually did use and set up a train station. Let's take a look at the video. Okay, so now in this clip, we actually, just to give you the backstory to this clip, first of all, it was an extremely expensive video to film. We took over Hoboken train station, needed to get permits from the government to do that. We needed to hire security to lock down the train station. And then every single person you see in that clip are actors. We had 6 main actors, and we had somewhere between 18 to 20 extra actors, which obviously you could figure out on the budgeting. And we did that because we obviously weren't going to make a clip for Agudas Yisrael of America with women walking around the train station, nor are we going to do that perhaps for your yeshiva. So by Yimayin, for sure we weren't going to do clips in a train station that had women in it. Could we have filmed? Yes. Would have cost tens of thousands of dollars? For sure. So with AI, what we did, we were able to create train stations and airports and so many other scenes where there's only men in those scenes. We were able to do it literally in about 2 days. We turned that video around, and on a tiny little shoestring budget compared to what we did in Aguda, the logistics, the actors, the cost, and then the editing to get the really similar results. So we're 3 years later where we could produce something much better, much faster, and ultimately much cheaper. I'm going to turn it over to Asher to take us into the next segment of what we can do these days with AI.
All right, thank you, Maishi. Just a quick shout out to all you executive directors. One of the big perks of my job is that 90% of the clients I get to work with are executive directors. And you all know your busiest, time of year is campaign. We live that every week. And to be able to deal with people who are real B'nai Torah and Menschlich makes a huge difference. Okay, just a quick overview of the specific topics we want to cover today. There's a few different pieces of AI that we're currently using, and it's constantly growing. Let's talk about, 4 of them today. So number one would be storytelling, where we're using the visuals to tell the spine of the story, which is really the example you saw when we, Moshe first introduced the story of Moshe Mordechai Epstein. We'll show some more of that. Number two would be more in a building campaign. We're discussing using renderings, creating images, creating videos from those. Number three would be branding in general. You have a theme you worked hard on, you have logos, you want to really, incorporate them into the video. And number four would be that, last tool in the toolbox for AI, where you're really making the HMI, you're having somebody speak, you're having something that wasn't their appearance. So let's start with storytelling. So before we talk, about the application, let me share with you a clip we did recently featuring Rabbi Spiro.
The Nazi army came to Poland and swept through town after town, village after village, city after city.
Sofort zeigen.
And finally, they came to Krakow. Reb Hirsch was one of those Yidden who lived in Krakow. One day, his neighbor knocks on the door. His Goyish neighbor. They had known each other for 15, 20 years.
I just want to point out one moment from that video before Asher moves on to the next video, that the transition from inside the room to the soldiers marching, that single shot, it demanded an orchestration of hundreds of highly precise prompts, AI prompts, that would govern the environment, camera choreography, lighting, spatial composition, flow, cinematic intent, to really get that Hollywood level transition. It takes a ton of work. And when someone wants to say AI made that video, not really. I'm saying, Baruch Hashem, we have a highly trained staff. That one that actually built that prompt has a background in cinematography as well, which definitely allowed him to really bring that video to the next level. And back to Usher.
Yeah, that being said, obviously another important takeaway is a video like that. I'm saying just the historical era and things like that would be very, very, very prohibitively, expensive to stage something like that. So this is definitely the better route. But like Moshe Nias is saying, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it's definitely the better route. Okay, moving on to another project we did in the summer with Living Kiddush Hashem. One of the elements of their video, we had Rabbi Hissiger say over a beautiful mashal. But the challenge was, it's a 5-minute piece. We want to keep it engaging throughout. And we want it to feel, not just him speaking, but we want to, again, bring you, immerse you into the experience. So let's show you what we were able to do there as well.
Rav Elchanan Wasserman offered a remarkable mashal that captures the proper mindset to be true Mekache Hashem. A great ship is crossing the ocean. On board are two groups, the passengers and the crew. The passengers relax and follow a few basic rules. The crew has a far more sophisticated mission: to navigate, stay on course, and bring everyone safely to a special destination. The crew lives differently, dressed for the job, focused on the mission. Even when invited to join the fun, they stay on task. Sometimes the passengers protest, change course, stop at that island, but the crew stays steady, loyal to the plan and the destination.
Okay, amazing. Just want to point out the difference. The video we just showed right now was made a few months ago, and the video we showed before that, which I described all the scenes, was made last week. It just shows how our team's capabilities and AI's capabilities really took a big jump. But I want to ask a question that's important to point out. Is that when it comes to this video with the ship, why can't we use stock footage? There's plenty of stock footage when it comes to ships. And the answer is twofold. Number one is that Sneas, unfortunately, many ship, if you want to look for stock footage off ships, you're going to have non-Sneas scenes. But more importantly, we need a certain cohesion when it comes to video. If you take one stock footage from there, here and there and there, you're not going to have one cohesive story. And a big mile of AI, especially by storytelling, is this level of cohesion. So now just giving back to Usher to take us to the next step.
All right, so one final video in this section. Rabbi Stern actually graciously agreed to let us share a piece of the video. Like you mentioned, we're going to be showing whether it's time dinner this month of Shabbos. Make sure to show up to the actual dinner to see the rest, but we're going to play you a short teaser clip on it.
The great Chazon Ish rolls up his sleeves and he takes the boy's filthy shirt and he puts it in, he starts soaking it in the water. Then he takes the boy's scissors that were as black as tar and he starts soaking it for 20 minutes in the water, and then he does the same to the boy's pants and the same to his filthy shoes. An hour later, the boy comes running in. He says, "Where's my clothing?" He's all fresh and clean. "Where's my clothing?" Chazon Ish shows him his shirt and his pants and his tzitzis and his shoes hanging to be dried. The boy would grow up and eventually join Kollel Chazon Ish, and he has not left to this day. To this day, he's in the kollel, he's married, he has children.
So just to point out one thing from that video, obviously similarly to the ones you saw earlier, is to be able to tell a story. But one other point, if you noticed, and again, you can go back and watch it again later, I guess, from the recording, but from the last scenes, he joins the Kollel Chazon Ish. Now, typically what we would have done is we would have taken a tight shot of someone learning. Now, obviously, again, the more accurate, the more immersive the story is going to be. So ideally, you want a shot from the Kollel Chazon Ish. Now, could you send someone to film? Yes, but we didn't. And we were able to take a picture of the outside of the Kollel Chazon Ish and then animate it, and then take a picture of the inside and animate that as well. So we created highly specific footage to match that, which really brings you in. So that was another nice piece of that.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, I'm assuming most executive directors are wondering, so now what should they do with this information? And I think the answer is that we're approached all the time when it comes to a dinner. Everyone wants a nucha. They want something different. Yes, you have the honorees, and yes, you have a certain program that you have to have because that's where the fundraising is. But how do you keep it interesting? Now, the limitations we used to have would be, number one, budget. If you're going to film something, to this, 2 years ago, it would cost actors, locations, film crews, editing. I mean, there's such a tremendous expense. That is now gone. Number two, another limitation would be, if you want to give over something that's historic, let's say the Holocaust footage is very limited. We've created now a ton of Holocaust footage, very specific to the storyline that we're saying. Now, if you want to connect to the person in the story, if you're, let's say, a Tomchei Shabbos or something like that, where you don't want to use real poor people, you can't use real people, we're able to create a cast of characters and then have a certain consistency throughout the story where someone could connect to those characters, understand them, feel them. So this opens up executive directors to understand that there are opportunities of entertaining their donors, connecting their donors to a storyline, telling over things that were, used to not be possible because it was historic and footage didn't exist, or even a mashal, which you could use at a dinner, you could use it in the classroom. There's so many, times that you could use this. Yes, over here we did use, Rabbi Joey Haber, Rabbi Yechiel Spiro, or Rabbi Hissiger. So we had mainstream, well-known storytellers, but there's many other ways of doing this. But the main idea that we want to bring across is that the opportunities that you have today are far greater than what you had 2 years ago and even last week. We want to jump in really to the next segment, though. As much as we'll talk about the advantages, and there are so many of what we could do with AI, there are disadvantages, there are pitfalls, and I think it's very important to understand where you could fall off and make mistakes. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to Moshe Nias.
Okay, so we're back. So this really brings us to the next section of this webinar. And the way I titled this section is Unlimited Creativity Needs Structure and Strategy. Now let's just explain. So unlimited creativity, as we saw, is powerful. It's very powerful. However, it's also dangerous. Big ideas are fragile. So again, as we saw, AI makes things possible, but does not make it believable. Now, if you don't have the right structure, the right strategy, it could feel fake, it could feel cheesy, it could feel amateur, and there goes your trust. And frankly, it might turn or make it look like sort of like a joke. So this is where AI projects really fail. AI does not replace the process. Again, bigger ideas require checks and balances. So Baruch Hashem, as a producer and the media, I have the benefit, the real fortune of sitting down early in the process. We sit down with the entire team, with the editors, the special effects, the AI team, the animators, post-production, and we get everyone into the room early, and we pressure test it. And I just wanted to, if Moshe Schiller just wants to elaborate on this point, and how we internally deal with it, but it's something that really is applicable to everyone here.
Okay, sure. So, someone told me a great line right before Hanukkah. He said that he's worried to see how Hanukkah is going to outshine Parshas Nayach for silly AI videos. And I think we're all, we get to see a lot of this. Wherever you are, if you're on WhatsApp, you for sure see a ton of AI videos. And the question is really, as much as we lay down some of the milos of AI, is that you want to make sure that if you're using it properly. As Maish mentioned, internally here, Baruch Hashem, we have a team and we bounce things off each other. We start with a vision, which will work together with a client, ultimately bring it back to the team to understand how will this come out in AI? Will this engage the viewers? Will it have, help them align themselves with the cause that we're trying to present? In other words, we don't want to ever, fall off to join the rest of the group of just putting out cheap AI videos. And in these cases that we're showing you, these are some were already shown, some weren't shown yet, some we're still in the middle of developing. But this is the work of going through all those steps, understanding the end goal, understanding where we're going with this video, and will AI actually help us here or will it hurt us? And the takeaway really for every executive director listening to this is, number one, as I said throughout, push your video, producer, whoever you're working with, push them to the limits, ask for the most, but you want to keep them in check. You want to know what's this going to look like. We've seen, pretty bad things out there of where people really mess things up. So you want to make sure that whatever it is going to ultimately present you well, and don't push the limits if it's going to ultimately come back to hurt you. I want to really move in for a moment to the next section, which I think is a big idea that everyone's probably thinking, is that these are all very nice. Stories are good. It entertains people at dinners. It's a powerful tool to engage, donors, volunteers. The real question ultimately is, and I'm sure everyone here is thinking this, is can I save money with AI? And number two, perhaps even bigger, can I make money with AI? Where are there opportunities for me to shave some money off my budget? And perhaps where are there opportunities to fundraise more using the power of AI? And I'm going to turn it over to Usher to take over from here.
Yeah, thank you. So the first place that comes to mind when we talk specifically about being able to use it as a fundraising tool is building campaigns, which I'm sure a lot of you are involved in. Now, traditionally, one of the problems in building campaigns is the campaign comes before the building actually exists. If you had the building, you wouldn't need the campaign. So how do you engage a donor and get them to feel excited about a project when there's nothing yet to show them? So this is not an old problem. And obviously, people have been working on this, and people pay a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars for people to create plans, and not just for an architect, but something that someone can appreciate, a sketch of the building. People have taken it further and made a realistic looking render. And then even further to make a 3D space where you can actually sort of do an animated fly through. But as Mashnias will take over later, all these comes at a cost. But what we've been able to do now recently with AI is to do a lot of the heavy lifting in a much simpler way. So let me share what we did recently for the Jackson Mikvah. They sent us actually very high quality rendering just as still images. I'll show you the images they sent us, and then we'll show you the video animations we were able to create using AI. So the following are just the still pictures they sent us from the exteriors, the interiors. And then right after this, we'll see what we were able to do with AI. So just understand, we're making 3D videos. This is not just a question of animating a picture. We're seeing parts that weren't in the original picture. We're coming from different angles. We're really bringing the building to life.
Yeah, amazing. So as Usher mentioned earlier, have we ever done 3D fly-throughs for building campaigns? Yes, we have. But even before getting to us, the amount of expense and work that you have to put in, whether it means hiring interior designers, decorators, the amount of detail that it takes in order to get that, the amount of money, back in the day, you were looking at least $50,000, at least $50,000. Now it's a fraction of the cost. And it really, really will empower you, Bez Hashem, to raise a lot more money at a lot lesser cost. But now I want to go back to Usher, where he's going to introduce more yesh me'ayin when it comes to these types of renderings. Usher, if you want to take it away over here.
Yeah, so recently, actually, we were approached by someone who was in an even rougher stage. They had a very rough sketch of what they wanted, but that was about it. So we had to take it from there to make it into the more realistic looking building, and from there to the video. And I'll show you now on the video. So this is something I made as a mock-up. We couldn't use their actual thing. So as you see, Yeshivas Torah Satira, donor's name here, campus, beautiful building, but it's a sketch. You give this to the donor, okay, it's a nice idea. What's it really going to look like? So first we used AI to create a more realistic looking render. And now, beautiful building in Yerushalayim, stone, Yeshiva Torah Satira, beautiful, still donor's name here, campus. But for the next step, how do we show this as live? We want to incorporate in the video. We want to have a drone shot of this. And once again, we were able to use AI now to animate this, as you will now see. So, I mean, we're coming basically from almost like a napkin sketch to a, high-powered video, which is really going to bring them in. For this particular project, we actually made several other animations. Again, I'm not going to share because it wasn't public, but with the specific donor's name on plaques, on arches, on things, again, could they have been done in the past? They could have been, but like Moshe said, at a tremendous cost. So this is a much, much simpler, streamlined way to be able to bring these things to life.
Yeah, so this is really, examples of where years ago, or even just last year or 2 years ago, to create a building campaign, to raise significant money, to bring donors into the feeling of the building, even show their name on buildings. These were things that were really not possible. And now it could be done quickly. It could be done cheap. Taking a flat picture, we could all of a sudden have these fly-throughs like Usher showed you from the Jack the Mikvah or this building in Yerushalayim. So these are real examples of where you could save money, make money, and really use it as a tool, as a fundraiser, as an executive director to get people engaged. I want to move into the next section. And I think that as executive directors, part of the role that you guys have is really to identify your brand, push your brand, so to say, make people feel part of it. And we do this at dinners where, there's the signage, there's journals, everything is kind of with your logo, with your color. There's many ways now, easy, quick ways that we could put in subtle ways, put your branding in throughout a video. Usher, if you could give us some of those examples.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is many of you are probably familiar that when we do interviews in our main studio, and many video production companies do the same thing. Instead of having one background, which will make everyone feel like they're in the same place, we use a green screen background, right? So even though everyone's filmed on a simple green curtain behind them, that gives us the flexibility to pop in the background of our choosing. So I'm going to share with you a short clip of Mechilas Kohen of Leo, just to use him as an example of where, typical what the green screen looks like. As you see here, he's talking on the green screen background. And with, what we always used to do is now we're going to pop him out, and you'll see it'll turn in transparent behind him in just a moment. And now we put in the background of our choosing. So typically, it probably would have been something like a Swarm Shrunk, So let's see what that would look like. And pretty good, but it is, generic. If we wanted to be very specific and use the EDN logo from last year to really drive home that this is part of the EDN thing, we pop him in a fancy hotel lobby with the fancy optical illusion EDN logo on the side, and that sort of brings everything together seamlessly. So that is a nice look that we have been incorporating recently. Again, is it possible to have done before? Yes, but this is a much simpler way to create a 3D space and incorporate branding. So that is one example of that. Another example we did for the Aguda that we did for their summit recently, that in the beginning of the video, we really wanted to bring an emotional statement that the Aguda is Klal Yisrael's. It's not just an individual. We wanted a lot of people. We wanted to create a powerful scene. We didn't want to hire the extras. So let's share with you a short clip of what we were able to incorporate in the beginning of that video.
It starts with one family struggling under the weight of rising tuition, a professional facing discrimination, a young community boxed in by discriminatory zoning laws. One voice becomes two, two becomes 10, 10 becomes a movement, and that movement, people standing together, is Aguda.
Yeah, if I could just jump in there for a second. If you see also that Aguda clip, what we did was we wove in AI generated, obviously, the people forming the Aguda logo, but you see the Aguda Askanim standing in front of the Capitol building, and that's interspersed with the AI footage, which gives over. Now, again, if you sit there studying it, you'll realize what's AI perhaps and what's real footage. But by intertwining the real footage with the AI footage, it gives over the impression that those Askanim standing in front of the Capitol building are the ones making up the Aguda logo. So again, it's not just hitting a button and pumping out an AI video, but it's using Chachma to figure out, hey, we have this clip of a bunch of people standing outside the Capitol building. Let's make them, through AI, look like they're forming the Aguda logo, which gives over the feeling of everyone being part of something. Asher, if you give us a few other examples where we could use these type of techniques.
Okay, so another example is maybe pushing the envelope a little further. We've done this for corporate clients, but sometimes you want to put out a promo, let's say as an invite to save the date, and you want to use stock imagery or whatever the theme is going to be, and you want to incorporate the logo into these things. So again, I can't share with you that specific video that I'm referring to, but we made a mock-up. Let's say we wanted to show people arriving to the EDN conference last year in style. This would be something we would put in that promo. So I'm not sure which of the VIPs is arriving, but definitely easier to do this in AI than hiring and painting a helicopter. One final example is really the reimagining. I would say this is the tool in the toolbox which you pull out very sparingly. It's when you literally want to create a video from scratch. You want to have the AI create the audio, create the visual. It's not as a backup visual. It's not as a piece of a story like much saying by the go. That's really the story itself. I'll just give you the backstory of when we did almost this exact thing. Recently, we were working with a client who wanted to give our very informational videos, but it was also important, obviously, that the viewers stay engaged. So one of the things we came up with is that some of their segments could be a game show style. They'll give over the information they want, but through a game show, there'll be a question saying, what do you think about this, A, B, C, D? And then they'll come in and give the information. So they were on board with them being the information part of it, but they wanted the host to be someone else. They didn't feel it was appropriate for them to be the host. So the traditional route would have been to bring on a host, to film him, to create a background for him. And again, it would obviously raise the budget. What we were able to do recently with this particular project was create a reimagining and create our own animated host. Again, I can't share with you that project yet. Keep an eye out for it. But if the EDN ever decides to do a game show, here perhaps is what it would look like.
For our next question, how many executive directors are part of the network? I'll give you a hint. There are members all over the world, so it's gotta be a larger number.
I think it is important to know, by the way, also, anytime you see glitches today, it was because of the Zoom. It wasn't because of our capabilities. But with that being said, I'll turn it over to Maishi Schindler for closing remarks.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of wrap up because we're nearing our time limit here. But we really, over the last 40 some minutes, we kind of went through a whole bunch of different ideas. We showed off the opportunities of storytelling, whether it was through someone like Rabbi Spiro, Rabbi Hissiger, Rabbi Joey Haber, which obviously gave the background and the passion and the drive behind those stories. But that could be used for you executive directors as an added on piece. Arthur Chaim is using it in this Matzah Shabbos, to engage donors, give over a message, and really, I guess most importantly, keep the program interesting. We spoke about some of the pitfalls. Overusing it or using it incorrectly will come back to haunt you. It's not only not going to be a tool that's going to work for you, it's going to be something that could work against you. You could come off, to your donors and volunteers, whoever you're showing it to, really in the wrong way. In addition, although yes, there's many opportunities, like we spoke about, building campaigns where you could save a ton of money because these fly-throughs used to be very expensive and now they're cheaper. Not necessarily is everything going to be cheaper. We had a client who called this week who said, I'm not sure, do you want to do this with actors or do you want to do it with AI? And when I saw what they wanted, it's much cheaper, much easier, much faster, and even better to do it for real with real actors. It would cost them, nice money, but AI would just take hundreds of hours to prompt these things. So these things do take time. It's not a one, we don't just type in exactly what we want and pump out these videos. Many of the stuff that you saw, Holocaust footage or these specific stories that we built, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of prompts because AI has a mind of its own. It's kind of a little bit potluck. Obviously, we're learning and we're getting better every day at understanding how to prompt them, how to talk to them and get the results we want. Obviously, having videographers as part of our team of editors helps us direct what we want the shot ultimately to look like. But it's important to note that, yes, it is cheaper. It could be cheaper. It not always is cheaper. Yes, it could answer some of your entertainment questions for dinners, but it won't answer all your questions. I don't see at this point, and maybe by next week it will change, I don't see how we're replacing honoree videos yet with AI. So I see I'm getting a lot of questions on my WhatsApp and directed to me privately. How would this play out in a regular school dinner? It might not replace your honoree videos, but it can replace your feature video about the school. You could turn it into a mashal. I don't know. I don't have it prepared for today, but I don't know how many of you might have seen our Tishalal video, where we took a video that was geared towards women. And we had the issue of not showing women, but we were talking to women. So we had, through AI, we had created a children's storybook. And then we filmed just a woman's hands holding this children's storybook. So that was an example where we had a problem where we were talking to women. We couldn't show women, a problem that many of us on this chat, on this Zoom call have. And we were able to, kind of work around it. So really to kind of come full circle and end this webinar is the power is there. And I really hope that over this time, you should all, hopefully have learned something that you can now go back to whoever it is that produces your videos. Know what you could ask for. Be careful of the pitfalls and the downfalls of where you could fall short. And obviously, each and every one of you have different applications as to how you're going to use this. And it has to apply to you. And as we said, you guys are the builders of Klal Yisrael. You guys are at the forefront and always thinking. And this should really keep you up at night with the possibilities of what you could do. We're going to post our contact information here. If anyone wants to reach out with questions, irregardless of who you use to service you, we're happy to answer questions. Obviously, ideas, concepts coming through a whole campaign is a long conversation that takes time. But if there's specific questions on what we spoke about that you might have, please feel free to reach out to us. We're going to post, if you could just post the phone number and email address. You're all welcome to reach out to us with any questions, feedback, comments, compliments. We're here to answer all those questions. And again, I really thank the EDN, the Stearns, Rabbi Yitzhak Krauss, for inviting us here and giving us the opportunity to spend some time with really the greatest group of Klal Yisrael out there doing for us every single day. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.